Hi, everyone. If you're just joining, welcome to the It's in Champions Network overview webinar.
Hold on.
Welcome. You can share in the chat where you're joining from today. And we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, we have a good crowd already, so I think we'll just go ahead and jump in. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your location. As I mentioned, we have folks from all across the country, so that's very exciting. And we're just going to go over our agenda for the IFN Champions Network webinar today. We are mostly just going to give you an overview of the Champions Network and then see if you have questions at the end, but we will start with some introductions for the project team here today. We're going to talk to you about the Champions Network goals and why this new network has been created. We are also going to share a little bit about the current state of girls and women in STEM. So talk to you a little bit about gender equity in STEM and why we think it is important. And then that will lead us right into talking about the If Then initiative and collection, which you may be very familiar with, or it might be kind of new to you. So we'll talk about that initiative and why it was started and where it is today. Then we're going to talk to you in more detail about the Champions Network, the benefits of joining the network and the commitments, and then how you can join through the membership form. And then we'll have some time, hopefully plenty of time at the end, if you have questions about joining the Champions Network or about the If Then initiative and collection. We can answer as many of those as possible at the end, and you can always email us your questions as well. So we wanted to start with some introductions. My name is Emily Early. I'm a senior program manager at the National Girls Collaborative Project, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in just a moment. We also have on the call Tara Cox, who's a senior manager of programs and partnerships at NGCP, or the National Girls Collaborative Project. We also have Dr. Brenda Britch on the call, who's the director of research and evaluation. And at the National Girls Collaborative Project, our vision is really to support and create STEM experiences for girls and all youth that are as diverse as the world we live in. So we work on a lot of projects similar to this one, but we also curate a lot of resources, free resources for our network. We lead a national webinar series that is an ongoing series of monthly webinars focused on a lot of times gender equity in STEM, but a whole slew of other topics that are relevant in the STEM world today. So there's a lot of really exciting webinars that we share that you can register for. We also have a monthly newsletter, which curates a lot of opportunities for both educators and youth. And we share that newsletter with our network. There are oftentimes grant opportunities or other sort of exciting resources that we share with our network, usually free resources. And then our website, we also feature and conduct a lot of research around girls and women in STEM. So we have a lot of up-to-date research and statistics for all of that. And we have a lot of other topics that you can look into, research on collaboration and partnerships, et cetera. And then just like this project, we also run and partner with a lot of different organizations to offer projects to our network, a lot of times focused on equity in STEM. And we're excited to share about this one today. I'm going to pass it to Amanda to talk about ASTC.
Hello, I am Amanda Fisher. I'm the Associate Director of Programs, and I am working on this project in close collaboration with Shannon Sullivan, who is the Senior Manager of Programs. So we at ASTC, a lot of you have probably heard of us. We are a membership organization, and our main goal is to support members in realizing their missions, which are often around engaging their communities. So we do that through a number of different opportunities. We have funding opportunities, grants and awards that we give out. We hold a annual conference, which this year is in Chicago in September, and various convenings. And of course, we do a number of different professional learning and development type programs. This one, If Then, as we'll hear about in a minute, really hits all three of those. Through it, we have the funding opportunities. We'll be bringing people to annual conference for convening and having great professional learning and development opportunities through these webinars.
Thanks, Amanda. I also want to introduce Chris Simons, who's on the call with us today from Lyda Hills Philanthropies. They are the engine and funder for the If Then Initiative collection and now the network. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. Yes, my name's Chris Simons, and I work for Lyda Hill at Lyda Hill Philanthropies, but I have the great job of solely focusing on the If Then initiative and inspiring young women or young girls and empowering women. And I am thrilled to be here to contribute. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the If Then initiative in a few minutes.
Thanks, Chris. So we wanted to officially sort of launch the If Then Champions Network today, also tell you a little bit about what it is and the goals of the network. So this is really a growing movement of institutions, museums, science centers, nonprofits, and individuals who are committed to advancing gender equity within STEM fields via the If Then collection. So we're going to tell you more about the If Then collection in a few minutes if you're not familiar with it, but if you have used the collection before, that's wonderful. We will talk more about the value of it. The network goals are really to activate and grow this network to support museums and individual members who will champion gender equity work and support the overall goals of the If Then initiative and collection. We also hope to cultivate a community where you provide support to one another, where we can support you and your goals around gender equity at your institutions or individually, and act as an institutional resource for others. Before we start talking about the If Then initiative and collection, we wanted to talk a little bit about gender equity in STEM. Currently, the research we know and have on it and why gender equity is so important. So I'm going to pass it over to Brenda Bridge to talk a little bit about this topic.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And thank you everyone for being here. As Emily said, we would like to start today with the why. So why we focus our work on increasing gender equity in STEM and why initiatives such as the If Then Champions Network are necessary and impactful. So first of all, women continue to be underrepresented in the STEM workforce. We make up 48%, almost half of the total workforce, but only 35% of the STEM workforce. And as you can see in the graph on the bottom left of the slide, women who are in STEM professions tend to be concentrated in different fields than men. So women make up relatively high shares of professionals in the social sciences and life sciences, but relatively, really very low shares actually of women in computer and mathematical sciences and engineering. And the underrepresentation is even greater for Latina, Black, and Indigenous women who represent less than 10% of the STEM workforce. We'll go to the next slide. So why does this happen? Why is this the case? We all know that all youth are capable in STEM, right? There are not significant differences when it comes to ability or achievement in math and science, but we know that girls and young women and other youth who have historically been excluded from STEM experience STEM differently due to a variety of factors. So first of all, access or lack of access to high quality STEM opportunities can really impact youth in STEM and their experiences and their trajectories. And this access can be related to where they live, right? Geography, school they go to, maybe the cost of those opportunities, transportation to get to those opportunities, just to name a few. Also, stereotypes are very important, an important factor. Stereotypes about STEM, who does STEM, about STEM professions, and about STEM professionals are persistent and can have a negative impact on girls and women in particular. We also know that STEM experiences that either are or are not personally relevant to girls and young women make a difference in their overall experience. So are we providing STEM opportunities that relate to girls' lives, that they can connect to personally and culturally? Are these opportunities showing girls how STEM can impact not only their lives and make them better, but their communities? These are all things that really can impact one's experience in STEM. And finally, access or lack of to relatable role models. So girls and young women do not always see themselves represented in STEM fields, which I think everyone on this call is aware of. And that's especially true for those fields I pointed out where women are most underrepresented. And research has shown that having role models who are relatable, which might mean they look like you, it might mean they have a similar background, it might mean they're doing work that you can relate to as being important to you or your family or your community. These all can have a powerful impact on girls and young women. And we care about these factors because ultimately they impact girls and young women's interest, confidence, and sense of belonging in STEM, which are connected to girls and young women choosing to pursue further STEM opportunities, studies, and even careers. So thank you. I'd like to turn it back to Emily, and you'll clearly see as we talk about the collection and the network, how all of these factors are really impacted by this work that we're doing.
Thanks so much, Brenda. So I'm going to pass it actually over to Chris now at Lyda Hill Philanthropies to talk a little bit about their goals and why they started the IFN initiative and collection a few years back.
Thanks so much again. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm thrilled to see the attendance, and I just want to cover a little bit about who Lyda is and what she's been doing for her lifetime. For those who aren't familiar, and then I'll hand it back over to do the really exciting and good work that's happening now with the IFN Champions Network. I have to preface what I'm about to say with a little bit of a personal note, because this is like a beautiful synthesis for me when it comes to things that I'm very passionate about. And 3 of those are science, museums, and representation. And as a kid, I grew up going to the Houston Museum of Natural Science, and NASA's Johnson Space Center had a visitor center, used to be on campus. Now that's changed, that's turned into Space Center Houston, which was amazing. But I remember as a kid seeing this mural up on the wall. I think it was outside the auditorium. And it was a very academic building, black and white, and lots of old pictures. Mercury astronauts were celebrated. But on this mural, an artist was asked to paint his rendition of what the future of space exploration looked like. And I remember among the images, the space shuttle program was new. It turned out it was 1979, just after they'd selected the first class that included women astronauts. He had sort of a multiple space shuttles tethered together, this group of sort of habitats that's rotating in space. And among them were humans, were astronauts, and one of them was a woman. And seeing that as my 8-year-old self, I thought, great, wow, this is fantastic. There is a place for me in this vast field of space exploration. And while the oceans captured my interest as a young adult, I did apply to be an astronaut a couple times. And I can tell you that that image, among all that I recall from Johnson Space Center back in the late 70s, early 80s, that image of that woman among the group of explorers out in space resonated with me and impacted me greatly. So I believe strongly and full-heartedly in the work that the museums and science centers are doing, and the impact that they can have on what a young girl could see herself doing. So Lyda, she's 81. She has spent her lifetime investing in game-changing advances in nature and science. And she, as we believe, that the solution to all of the world's challenges and on building a better future lie in science. And for the greatest possible outcome in all those pursuits, every perspective must be represented. 5 years ago, she and our CEO, Nicole Small, launched the If Then initiative to address the underrepresentation of women, specifically in STEM. And it was founded to empower current STEM innovators, so the women working in the fields, as well as to inspire the next generations. And our hope was to make actual, real, measurable change in the STEM fields. So we want to, in doing that, our strategy is to activate a culture shift in what does one see when they consider scientists or STEM professionals. And our mantra, the if then, I should explain, we use it interchangeably to mean if she can see it, then she can be it. If we support a woman in STEM, then she can change the world. If we inspire a girl to consider STEM, then she can change the world. The if then has served us well in our mission to change the perception of scientists. So over the past 5 years, If Then has produced an Emmy-nominated television show called Mission Unstoppable. We've created the largest exhibit of statues of women ever assembled, called If Then She Can, the exhibit, and then supported the creation of the If Then collection, which you're going to learn more about today. And you've already seen some of the beautiful images from that collection in the first few slides. So the common thread among all of those activities has been the If Then ambassadors. We selected them along with the American Association for the Advancement of Science in 2019. There were 125 women, and they share their stories, how they got where they are, what they've done, what they like, what they enjoy. We have pictures of some eating a dinosaur birthday cake for their 6th birthday. And yes, she did go on to become a paleontologist. They came from 40 different states. They ranged in age by decades, different career paths. They reached different milestones in their careers. They work in different industries and they study different disciplines. Many have been featured on Mission Unstoppable. And 120 of them were part of the exhibit, which actually peaked in its display at the Smithsonian in 2022 for Women's History Month. And all of this together forms sort of the basis of the collection and the contents of the collection. And I'm going to leave that to others to tell you more about. But the whole purpose is to inspire girls with better portrayals of women in STEM, to see what they can be, to learn more about what's possible, and to maybe even relate more when they see a woman who has followed a path that they're on, or has accomplished something, or if they faced a hurdle that they're now facing themselves. We've partnered with Olympic athletes, podcast hosts, supermodels. I think there were articles in Teen Vogue, US Soccer, things that appeal to young people in particular. We try to reach the young girls where they are. So we are active on Twitch and TikTok, YouTube, and platforms that I don't even know about, but I rely on my young teenagers to explain to me. So with that said, we're really excited to join forces with all of you on this call to work to shift the perception of what a scientist looks like, in hopes of inspiring our next pioneers. So I want to pass it back to Emily, but I will say that our hope is that the Champions Network adds value to the incredible work that you're already doing on a daily basis, and that feedback from you is essential for keeping it relevant and to support the work that you're doing to support girls in STEM so that they can change the world. So thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Chris. That was amazing. We appreciate you being here and sharing about LIDA's mission and everything that you have done through creating the initiative and collection. And we're excited to be part of it. So I'll pull the slides back up. So as Chris mentioned, we want to tell you a little bit now about a little bit more about the If Then initiative and collection. Chris really talked about this, but the If Then collection is the largest free resource of its kind. And it's really dedicated to increasing access to real, authentic images of women doing STEM in STEM careers. There's a lot of varying resources in the collection, which we'll tell you more about. But the collection is part of the If Then initiative, funded by Lyda Hill Philanthropies, and seeks to inspire young girls to pursue STEM careers, while also creating this culture shift in how the world perceives women in STEM, and really representing more women who are pursuing their goals and dreams through STEM careers. So we wanted to highlight some of the different ways that folks can use the If Then collection, and you might be familiar with some of these. So if you are familiar with the collection. If you've used it at your organization or maybe personally, feel free to share in the chat. We would love to hear how you've used the collection. But there are tons of photos in the collection of the 125 ambassadors who are represented both in photos. There are videos of them. There are, professional shots of them and also shots of them in the field. And the videos, a lot of them talk about their journey to where they are now, about their kind of career path, talk about what they do, some of the obstacles they might have experienced. There's also some great activities in the collection that you could embed into programming. You can see an example up there on the screen there, but there are a lot of great activities that can be used at your organizations. And then there are posters, which we used to give out to folks, but can now be printed and displayed in your organizations or institutions, and can also be added to programming. And there's lots more. There are thousands and thousands of assets in the collection. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to browse the collection, navigating the collection, because there are some great ways to search the collection and kind of narrow and hone in on what you're actually interested in finding. So if you are to go to ifthencollection.org/search, you can search through the collection. You can just scroll through it, or if you want to look for something specific, which might be a better fit, there are I think 5 different ways you can search the collection. So you can use keywords to search for specific topics, theme, demographic information, etc. You can also look for a type of asset. So if you're specifically looking for a video to add to a program you might be running, or to be part of an exhibit perhaps you're putting together, you can search just for just for videos, just for activities. You could also search by discipline. So again, if you're curating an exhibit and are looking for a specific something specific around earth science or aerospace, you can search for that and find ambassadors or other assets that represent that discipline. You could also search by location. So if you're located in Ohio and you're interested in ambassadors or photos of people who work in Ohio, you can search by location to find ambassadors near you. And then if you're interested in a specific ambassador who maybe works in a specific field or lives near you, you can search by ambassador name to find all of their photos, videos, activities that feature them. And so you can search that way as well. And I see some great ideas in the chat or ways that folks have used the collection. So thank you so much for sharing. Some people said that they've used images from the collection in curriculum. They've incorporated the videos into STEM workshops in schools and have posters hanging around their museums. Sarah said we use the collection during our Color of Science events and have some posters, I think, around their museum. And then Rosalie said that they created a temporary exhibit along with a web page, which is really exciting. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about the If Then project library, which some of you may be familiar with because you may have created an exhibit or assets that are part of this collection. So the If Then project library is another part of the If Then collection and is a library of printable exhibit panels, banners, there are digital media files, activities, and other content that was developed using assets from the If Then collection by ASTC member museums and science centers. And all of these printable materials are available to you to print and use at your museum or organization. You can adapt them. I think almost all of them are able to be adapted. I think there's 1 or 2 that have to remain the same. But if you're interested in putting an exhibit into your organization featuring the If Then collection and the ambassadors, there's some really great turnkey materials here that can be used. So you don't have to create something brand new. And you can search the project library and find all of the different topics. People use the collection in some really awesome and unique ways. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that and potentially use the resources in your own organization. So I think that covers what we're going to talk about today about the If-Then collection and the assets that exist. I'm going to pass it to Amanda to talk about the If-Then Champions Network now and the benefits of joining, the commitments, and how you can join today.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so wonderful to see so many people here already really familiar with the collection. Maybe you've received a grant through If-Then in the past. Maybe you've found those materials on your own. That project library Emily was talking about, all of the design files are available too, so that it makes it really easy to customize it. So we've been really excited about all the information, the assets, the resources we've built through the project over the last few years. And I guess it was last year at our ASTC conference, we got a bunch of people together in a room that had been working on If-Then, had been involved in some way. And we asked them, like, okay, if we kept going with If-Then, what would you want to see? And what we heard is that people really wanted this network, this group, this cohort, this connection with other people who are doing this kind of work that they can talk to, rely on, get advice from, and work together with. So that is why we are launching the If-Then Champions Network. So there are two kinds of membership levels: an individual and an organizational membership level. They're a little bit different, so I'm going to go through kind of the nuts and bolts of what it means to be one or the other. And we are going to have time for some questions at the end. So if there's anything that isn't making sense here, make sure to write your questions down and we'll answer them. So for individuals, anyone can join the network. Doesn't have any sort of restrictions on where you work or your type of position or even where you're located. We invite all individuals to join our network. Organizational members have a little bit of a higher bar to join. So we are inviting ASTC member organizations to join the Champions Network. And that's both science centers and museums, as well as allied members, which, for example, the National Girls Collaborative Project is an allied member, so you don't have to be a museum only to become an ASTC member. Organizational members are also required to have a commitment from an authorized representative. So essentially somebody who has that authority at your organization to say, like, yes, I understand the benefits, the commitments, and I can commit our organization to this work. So those are our two types. Next slide, please. And they each come with some different benefits. So the benefits that are for everybody, individuals and organizations, are quarterly educational webinars. So Emily mentioned the National Girls Collaborative Project has these webinars. We'll come together each quarter and have some community and some learning together on different topics. There's also going to be regular communications about various resources, updates to the collections or the project, the collection or the project library, network updates, all sorts of information that we'll share with you, and a bunch of resources. Emily shared some of those resources today, but we'll also be sharing things like a social media toolkit, talking points around supporting and advancing gender equity, and other kinds of communication materials that you can use. And we'll have lots of opportunities to serve as guest speakers or writers or blog post writers to get involved in kind of sharing your voice and your insights into this work. Benefits for organizational members. We have a little bit of a higher bar to be an organizational member, and we have a few kind of extra benefits for organizational members. So there are two things that you'll get when you join that are very exciting. One is a personalized session with our If-Then team to start discussing what your organization's goals are around gender equity. Where are you succeeding? What are your strengths? Where, maybe you have some challenges and areas of growth. And talking you through that, hearing what are the resources you need, the tools, the support, the information, and helping you kind of come up with that individualized plan of attack. So that is one piece that will be a benefit. The next piece that you'll get once your organization joins is a welcome kit. The welcome kit has some beautiful posters, some wall decals that stick right on your walls or your windows, so big window clings, or some tote bags that have If-Then collection ambassadors that you can use to share with maybe teachers that you work with, or librarians, or people who might want to know about the collection and be able to use it in their own work. So these items will send you an email once you've been accepted into the network as an organizational member. We're going to be sending out emails to pick which items you'd like for your welcome kit and then shipping them directly to you. And did I mention there is no cost to join the network? Maybe we should put that right up at the top. It is free to join. So we will tell you a little bit more about what the process is to join, but I should just say that right up front too. Some of the other benefits, these are very exciting benefits for organizational members. We have funding available to send people to our ASTC annual conference, where we will also be having our first in-person network event. So we will have, we'll limit it to one person from each organization, but we have about 15 scholarships available. So if you have not become an organizational member yet, we encourage you to do that soon so that you would be eligible to apply for one of these travel scholarships. We also will be doing a number of rounds. We're aiming for 3 rounds of kit distribution of basically, we will put together a display kit, things like maybe some pop-up banners, some hands-on interactive displays, and we will send those out to museums who would like to display them in their center. So this will be done in a few different rounds. We'll start with sharing some of that printed content from the project library. We'll do all the work of getting it printed for you and ship it to you. And then we have a few additional rounds where we'll be sending out those kits of interactive materials. And finally, we'll also have some grant awards, some award funding to support programs, installing If-Then displays, and even designing your own content. So lots of benefits available for organizational members. These will all kind of roll out at different times over the rest of this year and through next year. So we encourage you to get that organizational membership in soon so that you can apply for these. So now we've heard about the benefits. Let's hear about the commitments. For all members, our individual and organizational members, what we'd really like you to do is, participate. So attend the webinars, contribute to stories and blogs. We have a few opportunities. We'll ask for volunteers to contribute, and share what's going on in the network. So you might tell your own organization, if you are an eligible organization to become a Champions Network organizational member, we encourage you to try to get your whole organization on board so they're eligible for those scholarships. We'll also have some annual data collection activities, some surveys. We know that even just from your messages in the chat earlier, we know that there are a lot of ways people use the If-Then collection that don't always trickle back to us. And so we really want to hear about how are you using it? Where is it at? Is it on display in your museum? We've even had ambassadors who have taken a road trip and said, hey, I'm going to be going to all these museums. Where can I see exhibits with me on them? And so being able to share those kinds of stories and where those displays are is a really great way for us to know kind of the impact that we're having. So we ask that you'll participate in that annual survey. Then there are also a little bit more commitments for just organizational members. Next slide. There we are. I think it'll come back here in a minute. Well, I can share. So for organizational members, the other commitments are basically that you use the displays that we send you. If we send it out, we just hope that it doesn't sit in a closet somewhere, but it's actually out on your floor, or it's going out to events, or being shared with the public in some way. We do ask that you plan to attend that planning session to discuss your kind of organizational goals. That will also help inform us about what kind of professional learning opportunities we should be providing and sharing with the network. And finally, we want you to get your staff involved. So if there's one person who's kind of been spearheading this at your organization, if we have a webinar where maybe we're talking about designing exhibits using the If Then collection, maybe you share that with your exhibit staff and encourage a few of them to join. Or if we're doing something on programming, maybe you share it with your educators and ask them to join. So kind of being that advocate for the network and spreading the good work throughout your organization. So I think that is our commitment and benefit overview. Emily, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Amanda. Sorry for the slides going a little haywire there. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit. We've talked about the benefits, commitments, why we're here, and why we hope you'll join. But we want to talk about the membership form, a little bit about what that looks like and the process for joining the network. So you can join the network today. The application or the sign up form has been available for about a little over a month now. We already have some wonderful members of the network that we've accepted, and many of them are here today. So you can complete the form today. I think Tara is going to put a link in the chat, but it's linked on the ASTC webpage that we've shared a couple of times today. So once you click and start completing the membership form, you will see two paths in the membership form. You can either select the individual membership form, or you can select the organizational form. And they look pretty similar. There's a few additional questions, mostly on the organizational form. But we ask you some questions about either yourself as an individual or your organization. If it is the organizational form, we'll ask you a little bit about who at your institution is joining the network, who wants to be involved in communications and receive invitations to the webinars. And then we'll ask you some questions, just a few, about sort of your goals and why you'd like to join the network. If you've used the collection in the past, just some questions to help us sort of start to put together the webinars, see where people are at, and how much detail we need to go into in some specific areas. All in all, I'd say the application, either individual or organizational, takes about 10 or 15 minutes. It's not super long. And then organizations, there's a few extra steps, but it's still very simple. Again, you will click on that membership form and click on the organizational pathway. If you're not already a member of ASTC, you can join ASTC today. And we can help you with that. If you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to us. But we ask that you do that first, then you complete the membership form. And then there's also an organizational commitment form that an authorized official at your organization should complete. This is a very short form. It's, I think, about 5 questions, and just make sure that your organization understands the commitments of being part of this network. It's basically just kind of a sign off. And if your authorized official also wants to be part of the communications, receive updates about the network, we will add them to the communications list as well. And then just so you know, we do process memberships every 2 weeks. So as I mentioned, we already have a lot of people who have joined and organizations who have joined the network. And if you haven't heard back from us, we're probably you're in that 2-week window, so we'll get back to you soon. I think that kind of covers it. So I'm seeing quite a few questions come into the chat. Tara, do you want to, I think you maybe have been keeping a list, but maybe we can just start to answer some of the chat questions first. And then if there are additional questions, we can have folks raise your hand and we'll take your questions, but feel free to add more to the chat as well if you'd like.
Yes, I haven't been answering some of them because I think it would be helpful for everybody to hear. I think the first question is, what does the data collection look like? I think this was in relation to the evaluation.
Yeah, so we will have we'll have an annual survey essentially, asking you about your experience in the Champions Network, asking you about additional resources that might be helpful to you, what you'd like to see. So right now that is our plan. So there will be a survey annually, and then we'll do some data analysis on that, and of course, add more resources as needed, depending on what we hear from all of you. So it's a way to sort of gather feedback, essentially, on a yearly basis. We might add some other opportunities to collect data. We'll definitely at the webinars kind of see what you'd like to what kind of resources would be helpful to you, if you'd like to hear from role models, et cetera. So we will be checking in with you often, but that official sort of mechanism will be on a yearly basis.
And this is in no way an evaluation of your organization. It really is just information gathering for us so that we can create resources that are helpful to the network, that we can tailor our webinars to be helpful to the network. So just know that that's our approach to the data collection piece. The next, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just said absolutely. Agree.
The next question from Andrea was, is there a one-page overview of the benefits? So I will just, Amanda put it in, but I'll link it again. There is a PDF of the membership form. And the membership questions. See, another question that we got here is, what if we're a remote organization? We don't have a brick and mortar. Oh, sorry, I just lost the question.
Can I just speak really quickly? So we put it in the chat, but there is an overview of the network. There's a PDF that's linked on the webpage. So you can always, we've added it to the chat now, but you can get back to that. You can download it, share it with others at your organization if that is helpful. And I think there was another question about if there are, if they can see a preview of the questions that are in the membership form. And there's also a PDF that you can download of those that's linked on the website. So both of those, you can view the questions in advance and, even draft the questions and then add them. It's a Google form, so you can add them into the Google form, but both of those are linked on the webpage.
Wonderful. Okay, the question was, what if we're a remote organization? Our program takes place in schools and companies, but we don't have our own brick and mortar. Are they eligible for organizational members? And Amanda, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be an organizational member, you do need to be an ASTC member, but that is a type of organization that would definitely qualify for our allied member category. So we would be happy to talk more about that, what that means. If you want to reach out to us, I'll put our email in the chat and we can give you some more information. But yes.
I'm going to put in the chat as well a link to the ASTC membership page so that you can see more information about who is eligible there for the different types of ASTC memberships. How often are the webinars is a question. They're quarterly. I think our next webinar, quarterly kind of. Our next one is in July as sort of the first official webinar of the network. This one is our informational webinar, our pre-webinar. What else? There was a good question. Oh, there was a couple of people had questions about whether it would be confusing if they were both an individual member and a representative of their organization. Do you all want to talk about how that goes?
So if your organization is a member of the network, you can have as many people at your institution be part of that organizational membership. So if your organization joins, there's a place in the application to say, we'd like to join, and here are the names and email addresses, et cetera, of all of the people we want to be part of our kind of organizational membership. And if you want to add additional people after that, you can do that as well. They can just fill out the individual form, and we'll sort of link the two together on the back end here. So it's totally fine for your organization to join, and then for individuals to also continue to join from your organization. I think that answers the question, but if I misunderstood it, let me know.
I think so. Basically, if you're named in your organizational membership and your email is provided, you are considered an individual member of the network as well. You don't have to sort of become an individual member. So.
Right.
Maybe that was adding more confusion, but when is the July webinar? It's another question that we have.
I believe it is I would have to double check. I believe it's actually I can look. It is July 24th.
July 24th.
And just for the record, you're not required to attend every single webinar. I think we ask that you attend 50% of the webinars if possible over the course of a year. But we will record them and share the recordings with you. So if a date doesn't work for you, that's absolutely fine as well.
Janet had a question. Is the session at ASTC a pre-session or a regular conference session? We actually have 3 different things happening at ASTC, 4 actually, potentially. One is a pre-conference session, which will be happening on the Friday before. We don't have an exact time yet, but you'll know that as soon as we do. The second is a regular conference session during the conference days. There will be a booth in the exhibit hall both days, and then a reception type of event. We're not exactly sure what that looks like, but maybe an informal gathering of some kind. So there'll be lots of opportunities to connect at ASTC. Here's a question. Could you provide some examples of the content that organizations are sent and expected to distribute and share? Is it more printed materials like stickers or flyers, or larger commitments like displays? Amanda or Emily?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So for our welcome kit, we will be sending either the wall displays that like the 2x3 foot displays that go on your walls or your windows, or tote bags. And so you'll have a choice to choose between those. And you can also say, you know what, we can't display these or hand these out, and that's fine. You don't have to take one. We're giving everyone the opportunity to request one. As far as the bigger display kits that we're going to be sending out in rounds, they are bigger. So they might include pop-up banners. They might include what you might think of as more of a kind of temporary exhibit, like there's a table, there's big signage, there's interactive pieces that people can use and touch and get in the weeds with. So those pieces are more of a commitment to display. But again, we're not going to just send them to everyone and require that you use them if you won't be able to. We just don't want you to request one if you won't be able to use it.
So Kelly asked, are there larger displays traveling? So we keep them for a while, then pass them on?
The things that we send to you will be yours to keep. We have had people in the past who have created these exhibits and then taken them to their local library. Their libraries displayed them for a number of months and then given them back. So you're welcome to do that kind of sharing and spreading the love, but they will be your materials to keep.
Andrea had a really great follow-up question to that. Do we need to commit to displaying them within our own institutions, or can we work with community partners to distribute them throughout the city?
Oh, that is a great question. I think we will have a short, kind of simple application process, and we'll ask about where you plan to use the displays and how you want to use them. So I think you could tell us about that there, and if we have any questions, we'd reach out.
But we love that idea. So
Yeah, love that idea.
Seems like a great idea.
Mhm.
Um,
And Australia says, is there a way to acquire the statues?
so Chris, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to. In fact, inspired by Amanda's map of the locations of all of the ASTC materials that are in use currently, we have a map on our exhibit, ifthenexhibit.org site, that can share with you where all of the statues have been retired, because they've been retired to locations as identified by the women that they emulate. So they're all across the country, maybe one near you. And I think Kaylee actually shared some pictures of the ones they have up at the Pacific Science Center, and they did a really neat exhibit there. So unfortunately, they have been distributed across the country, but it's bittersweet because they're reaching a lot more people than they could have in one location.
Seeing if there's a question, I think Trisha's just adding in about and National Girls Collaborative states being able to use the materials. We'll definitely follow up about that, Trisha. Talk to Karen and the team about that. I'm just trying to scroll through and see if I missed any questions.
Dale, just
Oh, go ahead.
might there be an opportunity to build on the model with local ambassador-like folks? And I think, yes, Amanda, some of this did happen with, I believe, with some of the exhibits through the project library. Some folks created exhibits featuring women in their communities or at their museums, or that they knew who they featured as sort of ambassadors or as part of their exhibits. So Amanda, I don't know if you want to say more about that, but I think that has been done and is a great idea to sort of feature people in your community who are working in STEM.
Yeah, so a few ways that could be done. The project library, as I mentioned, has those design files. So if there's a display that you're like, I love this, but I want it to feature somebody that I know that comes to my museum, that that I work with, you can use that to create your own. We will also, as I mentioned, have some grant funding available for people to use to support that development of new projects, or altering things from the project library to fit their purposes. So we do have a little bit of funding for that.
Any final
Any
question?
other?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody wants to unmute as well and ask a question, then that's totally fine.
I'll unmute. My fingers are tired.
No worries.
I'm Lauren, though. I'm under Estrella's
Oh.
thing. So I'm Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Hi.
Thank you for your questions so far. They've been really good.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So would the potential grant funding be if we wanted to, and I'm thinking like these are wants and dreams and desires. If I want to build my own 3D printer of a local if then person or 3D statue, we could potentially get funding to do so?
Yeah, we haven't decided all of the parameters
Yeah.
of grant funding yet, but yes,
Okay.
most likely it will be very wide range of projects that feature if then ambassadors and have those kind of public displays.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome.
Can I just add one little note? So the piece about the statues, which I love the idea. So because they're images of the women themselves, you would have to work in partnership with them to have that kind of permission. We don't do that independently, as you can imagine. But yeah, I love the idea.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously somebody local to Arizona, right? We'd want somebody who's like, oh, this person's from here and this is them, 3D printed. So, okay, lovely. Thank you.
as we get a little bit further in figuring out those specifics, reach out if it's not clear and we can discuss ideas.
Yeah, great. My boss is very keen on those statutes, so I was sent here to ask that very specific question. So I had to take back an answer.
And just as a reminder for organizational members, you will have the opportunity to join those planning calls with the NGCP team to think through some of these goals that you have. It seems you're already thinking big and it's very creatively, and that is what this whole network is about. So you'll have some time to think through some of these logistics and reflect a little bit, but also plan for how you may use the collection and what impacts you want to make locally.
Can you talk a little bit more about timing? I'm thinking as I'm building something here myself that this relates to, when we have even a chance to think about applying for these grants or exhibits or what have you?
So our first I'll let Amanda jump in, but our first opportunity for organizational members to apply for will be some funding for the ASTC conference in September. So we'll be announcing that pretty soon. So if you are interested in that, I urge you to join the network so we can make sure that you are able to apply for that opportunity. And then we'll sort of be rolling out the rest of the funding over the next couple of years. Amanda, do you want to say any more about that?
Yeah, so our first kind of exhibit kit or display kit, we plan to open the applications for those within the next couple months, and by late this fall, start distributing them. And then we would aim for our next application to open kind of at the beginning of next year, and to be distributing those by next summer. And then a final third round kind of at the end of next year and distributing in early 2026. The funding, we give you awards versus like the kits that we're distributing, we're planning on opening those after conference, so at the end of this year.
And also, Amanda mentioned this, but I'll just reiterate, we are sending organizational members a kind of kit of materials before opening all of those rounds, which will have like smaller stickers, some bags, and then some of those like window clings, I think they're called, and posters and things like that. So there'll also be some things, very low lift things for your museum or your institution, nonprofit, that you can use even before we get to the grant opportunities. Okay, we have
for those, I'll just say for those of you that have already joined as an organizational member, we do plan to we have not sent out the information about the welcome kit yet, but you will be getting that in the next week and a half or so. So it should be getting it soon.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes, so if there's a final question, maybe we can take that. Someone asked private chat, but I'll just say it to the group if the chat will be available after the webinar. So we will share the recording of the webinar today. We'll share the chat transcript and the slides, a PDF of the slide deck. So you'll receive all of those after the webinar today.
Very cool.
Okay, I think we will maybe go ahead and close the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you will join the network. And we hope to continue to talk with you about the IFTHN Collection Initiative, learn from you, hear about how you're using it, how you will use it. If you have any questions, you can also email me at early@ngcp.project.org, which I'll put in the chat. But my email is on the ASTC webpage as well. So I think there was at least one question in the chat maybe that just came in that I didn't get to answer. So please email me. I'm happy to answer all your questions.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.